Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in MTG. I'm your host, Nitsa Hone, and this is a weekly recap and analysis of the week's big Magic the Gathering news, all in one video that is 10 minutes or less. This week, on episode 2, we're looking at last weekend's 3 Modern Grand Prix, the new spoilers from Kaladesh, probably most importantly, and a major announcement from Wizards about the sets that will be released in 2017. And this was a busy week, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's get started with the most exciting news of the week, official Kaladesh spoilers. They just started earlier this morning. We aren't going to look at every single one of them in this video, but we will look at the most important ones. Today, they gave us a taste of some of the marquee cards in the format, as well as showing us what the 3 mechanics in Kaladesh are, the 3 new mechanics, I should say. For the rest of the spoiler season, we'll basically be looking at the highlights of the newly spoiled cards, since we aren't going to have time to look at everything. For this week, we'll start with the newest Planeswalker in Magic the Gathering, who is Saheeli Rai. She was announced months ago as a new character, a new Planeswalker in the format, and now she has a card. She's a low converted mana cost Planeswalker, and those almost always end up being pretty great, even when their abilities aren't incredible. And her +1's not the most amazing thing ever. Her -2 is obviously very powerful. She's able to duplicate any creature or artifact for a turn and make a token of it. And her -7 is crazy powerful. People with combo decks are going to be happy. You can just search for 3 artifacts that just instantly win you the game. She doesn't seem super powerful to me, but again, she has a low converted mana cost. If you can protect her, she can do some ludicrous things. Maybe copy a Thought-Knot Seer or something like that. So another card they showed us, sort of meant to give us a feel of Kaladesh, is the card Inventor's Fair. We know that Kaladesh is an artifact-heavy block, and this card makes sure we know it. It pays you off by gaining you life if you have 3 artifacts in play and every one of your upkeeps, and it can also tutor you up an artifact. It seems like it could be really good, especially in Modern, potentially, where it would be really good in the prison deck there, the Lantern control deck. So that's sort of the 2 cards they showed us to sort of give us a feel for the format. And now we'll go ahead and move to the new mechanics real quickly. The first mechanic is what was once called Mechanic E. It actually is a mechanic going all the way back to Mirrodin block that Mark Rosewater wanted to introduce then, but they had to remove it. There were too many mechanics in Mirrodin, and he found a place for it finally, and now it is revealed what Mechanic E is, and it is Energy. Energy is a new resource. Aetherworks Marvel, an Architect of the Untamed, can help you to understand that. Aetherworks Marvel is a mythic artifact. As you can see, it allows you to add 1 energy counter to yourself, basically, anytime a permanent is put into a graveyard. Then you can use these energy counters to look at the top 6 cards of your library, and you can cast a card from among them without paying its mana cost. So you can cheat things into play. So basically, energy is like is a new special resource that's sort of similar to mana, but it's really narrow mana, and it also doesn't leave your mana pool. It can only be used for cards with energy in their cost. They said today on the panel discussing the new mechanics that almost every card that produces energy has an energy cost attached to it as well. And you can see that with Architect of the Untamed as well, which has like basically landfall, you get energy, and then you can pay 8 energy to get a 6/6 colorless beast artifact creature token. So that is energy. It's an interesting mechanic. I don't know that either of these cards are going to see a whole lot of play in Constructed, but they both seem pretty sweet. And Architect of the Untamed I think will be quite good in Limited. The next mechanic they introduced to us was Vehicles. This is actually an entirely new artifact subtype. These cards aren't actually creatures, despite, sort of what they look like. Notice that their type bar thing just says artifact, vehicle. Each vehicle has a crew numerical value, and what this means is that you have to tap creatures with power equal to the crew value to be able to turn the vehicle into a creature until the end of the turn. You can do this at instant speed. You can do it during your turn or your opponent's turn, in other words. It is worth noting that most of them aren't going to be able to attack the turn they come into play because they don't all have haste. Oval Chase Dragster here does, of course. But you can play a creature and tap it immediately to crew a vehicle because the cost does not involve the actual tap symbol. So it is unaffected by summoning sickness. Oval Chase Dragster seems like it could be pretty good in Limited. It's sort of a surprise card you can hit your opponent with. Reminds me sort of Ball Lightning, but it's easier to cast. And if your opponent kills it, if your opponent wants to kill it, they have to actually block it. And that's not true with Ball Lightning. Sky Sovereign Console Flagship. I mean, I haven't seen hardly anything of the set right now, just like no one else has. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say it'll probably be one of the strongest cards in Limited just because it's ridiculous. A 5 mana, 6/5 of flying. And it just has crew 3. Shouldn't be that too hard to assemble. And then it starts lightning bolting things, which it also does when it comes into play. So that is very strong. The next mechanic, the final mechanic in the set, is called Fabricate. Propeller Pioneer was the card they used to tell us about Fabricate. Basically, creatures with Fabricate have an enter the battlefield trigger that lets you choose whether to put a number of +1/+1 counters on the creature or servo creature tokens into play equal to the Fabricate value on the card. This seems pretty cool in Limited. Cards that put a token into play are always pretty valuable in Limited. Sometimes you'll also want this thing to just be a 3/2 flyer for 4, which isn't the worst. It was revealed that there are payoffs for both +1/+1 counters and having lots of artifacts in play, so these cards will fit into a lot of things. So, for me, another piece of interesting news that they showed us some spoilers of to sort of give us a feel was that each of the 5 colors will have a race that embodies it. Green will get elves, which is not something that's that original, but the other 4 creature types are things we haven't seen a lot of. White is actually getting dwarves, which you can see one of here. We haven't seen dwarves in an incredibly long time, not since Lorwyn block. Blue is getting Vidalcan, a race we've only seen on the plains of Mirrodin and Ravnica before. And there will be a Ravnica Planeswalker named Dovin Baan, we learn. Red has a new creature type as well. Red has the first new creature type, which is Gremlins. And Black gets a new creature type called Aetherborn. And it's, I'm not exactly sure what they are flavor-wise. I unfortunately missed that part of the panel. But they seem to be sentient. They're not exactly zombies. But they just seem to be sort of dark creatures who feed off of ether in one way or another. And they're pretty cool. It's also worth noting that the Gonti is a rogue. Whether there's a rogue sub-theme going on, I don't know. So let's go ahead and get past the Kaladesh spoilers and get to some other big announcements. The big announcement day happened earlier this week. We learned of the name of the next block after Kaladesh. It will be called Amonkhet. It will release on April 28th, 2017. That block will be, I think, based on the name, Egyptian themed. On top of that, we also learned that Nicol Bolas rules this realm. Similarly, there's an arch enemy, Nicol Bolas, which will be released around the same time, I'm guessing. Hour of Devastation is the second set in Amonkhet block. It'll be released on July 4th of 2017. Commander Anthology, which will be a bunch of different Commander pre-constructed decks together all in one box. It releases on July 9th of 2017. And maybe the most exciting news is Modern Master 2017 edition. Just comes out in about 6 months. It was a great limited format last time, and I think it will be again. So those are the big announcements. On announcement day, we kind of have a calendar. We know what's coming out in the next few years. And now we will go ahead and move to the last big news of the last week, and that was that there were 3 modern Grand Prix on 3 different continents. Grand Prix Lille was in Europe, Grand Prix Indianapolis in North America, and Grand Prix Guangzhou in Asia. These 3 Grand Prix have some very interesting results. While we don't have time to go over all of them, we will do a quick rundown. The best thing about these 3 events is that on the whole, I think they indicate that Modern is a healthy format. In total of 24 top 8 slots, there were 15 decks that appeared. What you have here is sort of an amalgamated list of the top 8 from each Grand Prix. Of the 15 decks that appeared in the top 8, some of them were decks that were old standbys in the format. Affinity, Burn, Jund, none of those are that surprising. Neither is Infect, neither is Delver, really, although Delver hadn't shown up for a while. And then decks that haven't been around for a really long time but have been around lately, like Goryo's Vengeance, Titan Shift, and Through the Breach, did well as well. But many of the other decks had yet to really make a great showing. Death Shadow Aggro got 3 top 8s, so it had 1 in each tournament. And before the weekend, it had managed 0 top 8s at premier level events. The deck looks to me like it's here to stay. Bant Eldrazi is the deck that has taken the place of the previously super broken Eldrazi decks that got dismantled by the banning of Ayavugan, but this weekend made it clear that Eldrazi is still good enough in Modern to put up good numbers. A blue-white control deck isn't something we've seen in a while. Almost everyone seems to try to play 3 colors in Modern, but it did quite well, obviously. For me, the most interesting deck of the weekend was Jeskai Pyromancer Ascension, which itself isn't a super new deck or anything, but this deck ran 4 Thing in the Ice, and that's a pretty cool card to see. Bant Nightfall is a deck that was a combo deck that uses Knight of the Reliquary Retreat to Coralhelm. We've seen it around, but it hadn't really made a top 8. And the Flayer Jund deck makes use of Grim Flayer, a new card from Eldritch Moon. So to sum up, this weekend showed that the Modern format's actually very dynamic. Everything is looking really good in Modern on the whole. So that does it for this week's This Week in MTG. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to click the like button. And if you want to make sure that you catch MTG This Week every week, don't forget to click subscribe. Thanks for watching.